The transport ship docked at Galactic Station Orion 7 with a soft hum, stood near the airlock, holding a small bag in her hands. She wore a simple uniform with the symbol of the Human Engineering Corps on her shoulder. Her black hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her eyes were calm and steady. The airlock opened with a hiss, stepped onto the station for the first time. The corridor was wide and bright, filled with aliens of many different species. Some were tall with blue skin, others were short with 4 arms. A few had scales that shimmered under the lights. They all moved with purpose, going about their daily work. Walked slowly, taking in her new home. She had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this place. Orion 7 was one of the largest stations in the outer sectors. It served as a trading hub, a repair dock, and a meeting point for dozens of species. Humans were rare here. Most of her kind preferred to stay closer to Earth or the inner colonies. She found her way to the registration office. A tall alien with skin and large yellow eyes sat behind the counter. He looked down with a bored expression. "Name and species," he said in a flat voice. "Human," she replied. The alien's eyes narrowed slightly. He typed something into his console. Human, fragile species, limited strength, average intelligence. He read the words from his screen as if they were facts. Said nothing. She had heard such words before. Many aliens thought of humans as weak creatures. They were small compared to most species. They had no claws, no thick skin, no natural weapons. To many in the galaxy, humans were nothing special. "You are assigned to Engineering Section 4, the alien continued. "Your supervisor is named. Report to him immediately." Took her assignment card and walked away. She did not thank the alien. She knew he did not expect thanks. The engineering section was located deep inside the station. Walked through long corridors and took several lifts to reach it. The deeper she went, the louder the sounds became. She heard the hum of machines, the clang of metal, and the voices of workers shouting orders. When she finally arrived, she found a large open space filled with equipment. Pipes ran along the walls. Sparks flew from welding stations. The air smelled of oil and hot metal. A group of aliens stood near the center of the room. They were talking and laughing about something. One of them was much larger than the others. He stood almost 3 meters tall, with dark green skin and thick muscles that bulged under his work suit. His head was wide and flat, with small black eyes that looked in different directions. Knew it before anyone told her. He had the look of someone who enjoyed being in charge. She walked toward the group. As she got closer, the laughter stopped. The aliens turned to look at her. Their eyes moved up and down her small body. Some of them smiled in a way that was not friendly. "What is this?" asked. His voice was deep and rough. "Did someone order a pet?" The other aliens laughed. One of them, a thin creature with red scales, pointed at, "Look at her arms. They are like sticks. How can she lift anything?" Another alien, this one with 4 arms and blue fur, shook his head. "Humans should stay on their little planet. They do not belong in space." Stood still and waited for them to finish. She kept her face calm. She did not smile. She did not frown. She simply waited. Stepped closer to her. He was so tall that had to tilt her head back to look at his face. He bent down, bringing his wide head close to hers. "Listen carefully, little human," he said slowly. "This is my section. I do not want you here. I did not ask for you. But since you are here, you will do exactly what I say. Do you understand?" Looked into his small black eyes. "I understand," she said quietly. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he straightened up and pointed to a corner of the room. "Go clean the waste filters. That is a job even a human can do." The other aliens laughed again, picked up a cleaning kit and walked to the corner without saying a word. The waste filters were dirty and smelled terrible. Most workers hated this job. It was hard and unpleasant, but worked without complaint. She cleaned each filter carefully and thoroughly. She did not rush. She did not cut corners. As she worked, She could hear the others talking about her. They did not try to hide their voices. "She will not last a week," one of them said. "I give her 3 days," another replied. "Did you see her hands? So soft and small. She has never done real work in her life." Continued cleaning. She had heard such words many times before on other stations, on other ships. It was always the same. Aliens looked at humans and saw weakness. They saw small bodies and thin limbs. They saw creatures that seemed easy to break. They never looked deeper. They never asked questions. They never wondered why humans had spread so far across the galaxy despite being so weak. Hours passed, finished the waste filters and moved on to other tasks. She repaired broken pipes. She replaced worn cables. She checked the pressure in cooling systems. Everything she did well. By the end of her first day, walked past her station. He stopped and looked at her work. His eyes moved over the repaired pipes and new connections. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. It might have been surprise, but then it was gone. "Not bad for a human," he said. It was not a compliment. It was said like an insult. "Maybe you will last a week after all." He walked away laughing. The other aliens joined in. Began packing up her tools. Her hands moved with practiced ease. She had done this routine thousands of times, on dozens of stations, in hundreds of difficult situations. She thought about her new crew. She thought about his cruel words. She thought about the days ahead. Then she picked up her bag and walked to her quarters. Tomorrow would be another day. She would face it the same way she faced everything else. With patience, with silence, with steady hands. Had learned long ago that words meant nothing. Only actions mattered, and she had plenty of time to show them who she really was. The first week on Orion 7 passed slowly for. Each day brought new problems. Each day, the harassment grew worse. It started with small things. Would arrive at her workstation in the morning and find her tools missing. She would search for them quietly, never complaining, never asking for help. Usually she found them hidden in strange places, behind pipes, inside storage bins. Once she found her best wrench floating in a tank of cooling fluid. The other workers would watch and laugh. They thought it was funny to see the small human searching for her equipment. They made bets on how long it would take her to find everything. Always watched from a distance. He never touched her tools himself. He was too smart for that. But everyone knew he was behind it. He gave the orders. He enjoyed the show. Said nothing. She simply retrieved her tools, cleaned them if needed, and started her work. Her face remained calm. Her hands remained steady. This made angry. He wanted to see her cry. He wanted to see her break. He wanted her to quit and leave his section. But she did none of these things. So he made things harder. During the second week, assignments changed. Started giving her the most difficult jobs. He sent her to repair systems in the hottest parts of the station, where the temperature was almost unbearable. He ordered her to work in the spaces where even her small body could barely fit. One day he sent her to fix a broken valve in the waste processing area. The smell was so strong that most workers refused to go there, but went without complaint. She spent 6 hours in that terrible place, breathing through her mouth, working with careful precision. When she finished, the valve worked better than it had in years, but did not thank her. He did not even look at her work. "There is another broken valve in Section 7, he said. "Go fix it." Nodded and gathered her tools. She walked to Section 7 and fixed that valve too. The other workers began to notice something strange. No matter what job gave, she completed it. No matter how hard he pushed her, she did not fall. She was like water. She flowed around every obstacle. This worried some of them. A thin alien named approached one evening after had left. "She is not normal," said. His red scales flickered with unease. "I have never seen a human work like that. She does not get tired. She does not get angry. It is strange." Laughed loudly. "She is just a stupid human. She does not know how to quit. That is her problem, not ours. But what if there is more to her? Asked. There is nothing more, said firmly. Humans are weak. Everyone knows this. She is just too dumb to realize she should give up. Nodded slowly, but his eyes still held doubt. The harassment continued. During the third week, things became more direct. Workers would bump into in the corridors. They would knock her down and pretend it was an accident. They would step on her tools or kick her supply crate. One morning, arrived at her station to find her entire toolkit destroyed. Every wrench was bent. Every scanner was cracked. Her welding torch had been crushed flat. She stood there looking at the pile of broken equipment. For a long moment, she did not move. The other workers watched silently, even stopped what he was doing to see her reaction. This was it, they thought. This was the moment she would finally break. Reached down and picked up a bent wrench. She examined it carefully. Then she set it aside and picked up the next tool. One by one, she sorted through the damage. Some tools could be fixed, some could not. When she was done, she looked up at. Her face was calm. Her voice was quiet. I need new tools, she said. May I request them from the supply office? Stared at her. His jaw tightened. He had expected tears. He had expected anger. He had expected her to scream and storm away. But she just stood there, asking for new tools like nothing had happened. Get them yourself, he growled. Nodded and left for the supply office. When she returned with new equipment, the other workers avoided her eyes. Something had shifted. They had thrown their worst at her and she had not fallen. It was unsettling. But was not ready to give up. He gathered his closest followers that evening. We need to push harder, he said. She is playing a game. She wants us to think she is strong, but she is just a human. She will break eventually. What should we do? Asked. Smiled coldly. Tomorrow we stop her from working entirely. We block her from every job. We make her useless. When she cannot work, she will have no purpose here. Then she will leave. The others agreed. They made their plan. The next morning, arrived at her station as usual. But every time she tried to start a job, someone else was already there. When she went to repair a cooling unit, a worker pushed her aside and said it was his job. When she tried to fix a broken console, another worker blocked her path. This is my section, he said. Go somewhere else. Walked to another area, but the same thing happened. Workers followed her everywhere, claiming every job before she could start. By midday, she had accomplished nothing. She stood in the corner of the engineering section, watching the others work. Her tools hung unused at her side. Walked over to her with a wide grin on his face. Having trouble, little human? He asked. Maybe there is no place for you here after all. Maybe you should go back to your weak little planet. Looked at him. Her eyes were steady and clear. I will find work, she said simply. Laughed. There is no work for you. My people have taken everything. You are useless now, just like all humans. Did not reply. She turned and walked away. Watched her go, feeling satisfied. He had finally won. The stupid human had nothing left to do. Soon she would request a transfer. Soon she would be gone. But did not go to her quarters. She went to the station's main computer terminal. She accessed the repair request database and began reading through the list of pending jobs. Most of them were in Engineering Section 4, already claimed by workers, but some were in other sections. Difficult jobs that no one wanted, dangerous jobs that others had refused. Selected one of them, a broken power conduit on level 12. The file noted that the area was unstable and possibly dangerous. She gathered her tools and headed for level 12. The conduit was in bad shape. Sparks flew from cracked panels. The floor was hot beneath her feet. Warning lights flashed red all around her. Worked slowly and carefully. She disconnected the damaged sections. She rerouted the power flow. She replaced the broken parts with spare components from her kit. It took her 4 hours. When she finished, the warning lights turned green. The power flowed smoothly again. She walked back to her quarters alone. She did not tell anyone what she had done. She did not file a report. The next morning, Station Command noticed that the Level 12 power problem had been fixed. They checked the logs but found no record of who had done the work. Arrived at Engineering Section 4 as usual. Workers blocked her again. She waited patiently, then walked to the computer terminal and selected another unwanted job. This pattern continued for days. Thought he was winning, but somewhere in the station, problems were being solved by hands he could not see. It was evening on Orion 7. The station's artificial lights had dimmed to simulate nighttime. Most workers had finished their shifts and gathered in the mess hall for dinner. The mess hall was a large room with long tables and benches. Food dispensers lined the walls, offering meals for dozens of different species. The air was filled with the smell of cooking and the sound of conversation. Sat alone at a small table in the corner. She had a simple meal in front of her: rice, vegetables, and a cup of water. She ate slowly, enjoying the quiet moment after a long day of work. She had been on the station for almost a month now. Things had not gotten easier, and his crew still blocked her from most jobs. They still insulted her whenever they could, but she had found her own way to survive. She took the jobs no one else wanted. She worked in places others feared to go. The station was running better because of her work. Power systems were more stable. Broken equipment was being fixed, but no one knew it was her. She never took credit. She never complained. Tonight, she just wanted to eat her meal in peace. But peace was not something intended to give her. The doors of the mess hall opened with a loud hiss. Walked in with 4 of his followers. They were laughing about something, their voices loud and harsh. Other workers looked up briefly, then returned to their meals. No one wanted trouble with. His eyes scanned the room. When he spotted sitting alone, his smile grew wider. "Look," he said to his followers. "The little human is eating. How cute. Let us go say hello." They walked toward her table. Other workers quickly moved away, leaving empty space around. She continued eating, not looking up. Stopped right next to her. He was so large that his shadow covered her entire table. His followers spread out behind him, blocking any path of escape. "Hello, little human," said. His voice was falsely friendly. "Are you enjoying your meal?" Looked up at him. "Yes," she said quietly. "Thank you for asking." "You should thank me," continued. "I let you work in my section. I give you easy jobs. I am very kind to you." Said nothing. She took another bite of her food. This made angry. He reached down and grabbed her tray, throwing it across the room. Food scattered everywhere. The tray clattered loudly against the floor. The mess hall went silent. Everyone turned to watch. "When I speak to you, you look at me," growled. "You show respect." Looked at the mess on the floor. Then she looked back at. Her face remained calm. "I understand," she said. "No, you do not understand," said. He leaned down, bringing his face close to hers. "You come here to our station. You take our jobs. You act like you belong here. But you do not. Humans are weak. Humans are inferior. You should not be among us." The other workers watched in silence. Some of them looked uncomfortable, but no one moved to help. "I want you to say it," continued. "I want you to admit that humans are inferior. Say it loud so everyone can hear." Met his eyes. For a long moment she did not speak. "I will not say that," she said finally. Her voice was quiet but firm. His face twisted with rage. He grabbed by the front of her uniform and lifted her off the bench. Her feet dangled above the ground. "You will say it," he snarled, "or I will make you say it." Did not struggle. She hung in his grip like a doll, her eyes still steady. "Put me down," she said calmly. "Say it." "I will not." Raised his other hand. It was massive, with thick fingers that could crush metal. He pulled it back, ready to strike. "That is enough." The voice cut through the mess hall like a blade. It was calm and authoritative, carrying the weight of command. Everyone turned toward the entrance. A man stood there wearing the uniform of a station commander. He was human, with a lean build and short black hair. His face was stern, his eyes sharp. This was Commander of Orion 7. Froze, he had not expected interference. Station commanders usually stayed in their offices. They did not come to the mess hall during dinner. "Put her down," said again. He walked forward slowly, his boots clicking on the metal floor. Hesitated. He looked at his followers, but they offered no support. They were already stepping back, putting distance between themselves and the situation. "I said put her down." His voice grew colder. "That is an order." Lowered to the ground, she straightened her uniform calmly and stepped back from him. Stopped a few meters away from. Despite being much smaller, he showed no fear. "What is happening here?" he asked. "Nothing, Commander," said quickly. "We were just talking." "Is that so?" Looked at the scattered food on the floor. He looked at the silent crowd of workers. "It does not look like talking to me." "It was a misunderstanding," said. His voice was defensive now. "The human dropped her food. I was helping her. By lifting her off the ground with your fist." Had no answer for that. Turn 2, "Are you injured?" "No, Commander," she said. "Good," he turned back to. "I have heard reports about your section, about how you treat certain workers, about harassment and sabotage." His face paled slightly. "Those are lies, Commander. My section runs smoothly. I treat all workers fairly." "Do you?" Stepped closer. "Then explain why one worker in your section has filed 0 complaints, but has completed 47 repair jobs that were listed as refused or too dangerous in the past month alone." The crowd murmured in surprise, looked confused. 47 jobs, continued. Power systems, life support repairs, structural fixes on unstable levels, all done quietly, all done well. Would you like to guess who completed them? Said nothing, his eyes darted toward. Noticed? Yes, it was her. While you were busy making her life difficult, she was busy keeping this station running. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. Workers looked at with new eyes. This small, quiet human had done all that. "But that is not why I am here tonight," said. His voice became very serious. "I am here to give you a warning. Before you continue harassing this particular human, I suggest you check her personnel file. Her complete personnel file." Frowned. "Her file says nothing special. She is just an engineer." "Her current file says that, but her military record is separate. It requires security clearance to access." Paused. "I am giving you temporary clearance. Level 4, enough to read her service history." Something in his tone made uneasy. The commander was not smiling. He was not joking. There was a weight to his words that suggested something important. "Why should I care about her military record?" asked. "Because I care about maintaining order on my station," replied. "And I would rather you learn the truth now in a peaceful way than learn it later in a way that might be painful for you." He turned and walked toward the exit. At the door he stopped and looked back. "Read the file, then decide if you want to continue this game." He left without another word. The mess hall remained silent. Workers stared at each other. No one knew what to say. Stood frozen for a long moment. Then he turned and stormed out of the mess hall, his followers hurrying behind him. Bent down and began picking up her scattered food. A worker nearby moved to help her, but she shook her head gently. "It is fine," she said. "I can clean this myself." She finished cleaning and walked away quietly. Behind her, the mess hall slowly returned to normal, but the conversations were different now. Everyone was wondering the same thing. What was in that file? Sat alone in his quarters. The room was dark except for the glow of his personal terminal. He stared at the screen, his thick fingers hovering over the keyboard. He had been sitting there for an hour, unable to bring himself to open the file. Part of him wanted to ignore Commander's words. The human officer was probably bluffing, trying to scare him with empty threats. What could possibly be in a small human's military record that would matter? But another part of him remembered the look in his eyes. The commander had not been joking. There had been genuine warning in his voice, as if he knew something terrible and was trying to prevent a disaster. Finally typed in his temporary security clearance. The screen flickered, then displayed a list of restricted files. He found his name and selected it. A warning appeared. This file contains classified military information. Unauthorized access or distribution is punishable under galactic law. He pressed continue. The file opened. At first it looked normal, basic information. Name, species, human, planet of origin, Earth. Current assignment, engineering, Orion 7. Scrolled down, past her education, past her training records, past her previous assignments. Then he reached her military service section. The file expanded. Page after page of information appeared. Mission reports, combat records, medical files, commendations. His eyes grew wide as he began to read. The first entry was dated 12 years ago. Had enlisted in the Human Defense Force at age 18. She had volunteered for Special Operations training. The records showed that she graduated at the top of her class. Her first missions were small. Rescue operations, security details, nothing unusual. Then came the conflict. Had heard of the conflict. Everyone had. It was one of the bloodiest battles in recent galactic history. A hostile species called the had invaded human colonial space. They had attacked without warning, slaughtering thousands of innocent people. The humans had fought back. The war lasted 3 years. Millions died on both sides. Had always assumed humans barely survived the war, that they won through luck or through help from other species. He was wrong. He found his file and began reading. During the war, had been assigned to defend a colony called New Haven. It was a small settlement on a farming planet. 3,000 civilians lived there, mostly families with children. They attacked New Haven with overwhelming force. 200 soldiers landed near the colony, heavily armed and hungry for blood. The colony's defense force was small, only 20 soldiers. They fought bravely, but they were quickly cut down. Was the last defender standing. The report described what happened next. Retreated to the main building where the civilians were hiding. It was a large structure with a single long corridor leading to the shelter. She blocked that corridor alone. For 18 hours she held that position. 200 soldiers tried to get through. None of them succeeded. The report included details that made blood run cold. Had used every weapon available. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she used pistols. When her pistols ran empty, she used knives. When her knives broke, she used her hands. The sent wave after wave of soldiers, killed them all. By the time reinforcements arrived, the corridor was filled with bodies. 187 soldiers lay dead. Stood at the end of the corridor, covered in blood, barely able to stand. But she was still standing, still blocking the path to the civilians. 3,000 people survived because of her, every single one of them. His hands were shaking now. He continued reading. After New Haven became a legend among human soldiers, they called her the Wall. She was promoted and given command of her own Special Operations Unit. The records of her next missions were even more terrifying. She led assaults on bases. She rescued prisoners from enemy territory. She destroyed supply lines and communications. Wherever she went, they learned to fear her name. One report caught his attention. It was from a prisoner who had been captured and interrogated. The prisoner had been asked about human military forces. "We do not fear their ships," the had said. "We do not fear their weapons, but we fear their soldiers, especially the small ones. They do not stop. They do not run. They keep coming until you are dead or they are. The interrogator had asked about specific humans. The prisoner's response was recorded word for word. There is one they call the Wall. She is small even for a human. She looks weak, but she killed more of my brothers than any army. When we heard she was coming to a battle, many of us refused to fight. We would rather face execution than face her. Stared at those words for a long time. He thought about all the times he had insulted, all the times he had pushed her, all the times he had tried to make her break. She had never fought back. She had never even raised her voice. But she could have killed him at any moment. She could have killed all of them. He scrolled to the end of the file. There were more commendations, more medals, more records of impossible victories. The final entry was about her retirement from active service. After the conflict ended, had requested a transfer to engineering. She said she was tired of fighting. She wanted to build things instead of destroying them. Her request was approved. She became a simple engineer. She took quiet assignments on remote stations. She never spoke about her past. Until now. Closed the file. His quarters suddenly felt very small, very quiet. He thought about the woman he had been tormenting for weeks. The woman who cleaned waste filters without complaint. The woman who fixed dangerous systems that others refused to touch. The woman who never showed anger, never showed fear. That woman was the Wall of New Haven. That woman had held a corridor against an army. That woman had killed more enemies than could count. And had thrown her food on the floor. He had grabbed her by her uniform. He had threatened to hit her. His stomach twisted with sudden fear. What would have happened if had not interrupted? What would have done if had actually struck her? The answer was obvious. She would have destroyed him, easily, quickly, without hesitation. But she had not. She had stood there calmly waiting, giving him a chance to stop. Realized something that made him feel very small. Had not been afraid of him. She had never been afraid. She had let him harass her because she chose to. Because fighting him was beneath her. Because she was trying to live a peaceful life. And he had almost ruined that. He thought about his followers. They did not know the truth yet. They still thought was weak. They might try something stupid. Stood up quickly. He needed to warn them. He needed to make sure no one touched again. Not because had ordered it, but because he was genuinely terrified of what would happen if they pushed her too far. He rushed out of his quarters, his heart pounding. The Wall of New Haven was on his station, and he had been poking her for weeks. He had never made a bigger mistake in his life. The next morning came like any other on Orion 7. The station hummed with activity. Workers moved through corridors. Machines whirred in the background. The artificial lights brightened to signal the start of a new day. Woke early as she always did. She washed her face, tied her hair back, and put on her uniform. She looked at herself in the small mirror by her bed. Her face was calm. Her eyes were steady. Just another day. She walked to Engineering Section 4, expecting the usual treatment. Workers blocking her path. Cruel words whispered behind her back. Jobs taken before she could claim them. But when she arrived, something was different. The section was quiet. Workers stood at their stations, but they were not working. They were looking at her, and their expressions had changed. There was no mockery in their eyes, no anger, no contempt. There was fear. Stopped at the entrance. She looked around slowly. Everyone she met quickly looked away. Some of them stepped back as if making room for her to pass. She walked to her usual workstation. No one blocked her path. No one said a word. Her tools were there, all of them, arranged neatly in a row, not hidden, not damaged, just waiting for her. Picked up a wrench and examined it. It was her original wrench, the one that had been bent weeks ago. Someone had fixed it. The metal was straight again, polished until it shone. She put it down and turned around. The workers were still watching her. Some of them were trembling. Then she heard heavy footsteps approaching. Walked into the section. He looked different from before. His massive shoulders were hunched. His head was low. His small black eyes were fixed on the floor. The other workers parted quickly, making a path for him, but he did not stop to greet them. He walked straight toward. She stood still, watching him approach. Her face showed nothing. Stopped 2 meters away from her. For a long moment he did not move. He did not speak. Then slowly, he lowered himself to one knee. The section went completely silent. No one breathed. No one moved. They all stared in shock as the massive alien knelt before the small human. Pressed his forehead to the floor. His body was shaking. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was rough and broken. "I did not know. I did not understand. Please forgive me." Looked down at him. She did not smile. She did not frown. "Stand up," she said quietly. Did not move. "I cannot. I insulted you. I threatened you. I should have been killed for what I did. You showed mercy and I was too blind to see it." I said stand up. Slowly rose to his feet. He kept his eyes on the floor. He could not bring himself to look at her face. "What you did was wrong," said calmly, "but I forgive you." Finally looked up. His eyes were wet. "How can you forgive me after everything I did?" Paused. She seemed to be thinking about her answer. "Because I am tired of fighting," she said finally. "I spent many years at war. I killed many enemies. I watched many friends die. When the war ended, I promised myself that I would never fight again unless I had no choice." She picked up her wrench and turned back to her workstation. "You gave me many reasons to fight," she continued. "But you never gave me no choice, so I let it go. Every insult, every theft, every threat, I let it all go." Lowered his head again. "I'm ashamed." "Good," began working on a nearby machine. "Shame is how we learn. Use it to become better." She worked in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again without looking up. "Now, is there any work that needs to be done today?" Was stunned. He had expected anger. He had expected punishment. He had expected her to demand his removal from the station. Instead, she was asking about work, as if nothing had happened. There is a problem with the cooling systems on level 8, he stammered. "The filters are clogged." "I will handle it," said. She gathered her tools and walked toward the exit. Workers jumped out of her path. Some of them bowed their heads as she passed. At the door, she stopped and looked back. "One more thing," she said. "I do not want special treatment. I am just an engineer. Treat me like any other worker." Then she was gone. Stood frozen for a long moment. Then he turned to face his followers. They looked as shocked as he felt. "You heard her," he said quietly. "She is just an engineer. Treat her with respect." Stepped forward. His red scales were pale with fear. "Is it true, the stories in her file?" Nodded slowly. "It is all true, every word." A murmur passed through the crowd. Workers exchanged nervous glances. "She could have killed us," someone whispered. "She could have killed all of us." "Yes," said, "she could have, but she chose not to. Remember that." The days that followed were different on Orion 7. Word spread quickly through the station. Everyone learned about the small human engineer in Section 4. Everyone learned about the Wall of New Haven. Workers who had never spoken to before now nodded respectfully when she passed. Aliens who had once mocked humans now kept their mouths shut. Even the most arrogant species on the station treated with courtesy. But seemed not to notice. She continued her work as always. She fixed broken machines. She cleaned dirty filters. She repaired damaged systems. She never asked for praise. She never mentioned her past. Commander visited Engineering Section 4 one afternoon. He found working alone on a power relay. "I heard things have changed around here," he said. Looked up briefly. "People are being polite now." "Is that a problem?" "No, it is just different." She returned to her work. "I preferred being invisible, but I can adapt." Smiled slightly. "For what it is worth, I think you made the right choice. showing mercy instead of force. It speaks to your character. Tightened a bolt. I made that choice a long time ago, when I left the military. I decided I would never fight again unless there was no other option. And what if it actually hit you? Paused, she looked at with steady eyes. Then there would have been no other option. A chill ran down spine. Despite being human himself, despite knowing her record, he still found her terrifying in that moment. He cleared his throat. Well, I am glad it did not come to that. So am I, said simply. Months passed, remained on Orion 7. She became the most respected worker on the station, not because people feared her power, but because they admired her restraint. She had every right to demand punishment for those who wronged her. Instead, she forgave them. She had every right to brag about her past. Instead, she stayed silent. She had every ability to dominate others. Instead, she served. Became her most loyal supporter. He never forgot the lesson he learned that night in his quarters. He worked hard to make up for his past behavior. He defended whenever anyone spoke against her. He told new workers her story, making sure they understood who she really was. One evening, sat alone in the mess hall, eating her dinner, approached hesitantly and stood nearby. "May I sit?" he asked. Nodded. Sat across from her. He was silent for a long moment. "I have a question," he finally said, "something I have wondered about for months." "Ask." "Why did you come here? To this station, I mean. You could work anywhere. You could have a comfortable job on Earth or in the inner colonies. Why choose a place like this?" Took a bite of her food. She chewed slowly, thinking. "Because nobody knew me here," she said. "On Earth, people recognize me. They treat me like a hero, but I do not feel like a hero. I feel like someone who did terrible things because she had no choice." She looked at, here I was just a human engineer, small and weak, easy to ignore. That was what I wanted, to be invisible, to be ordinary. Lowered his eyes. "I ruined that for you." "Yes, but it is okay," smiled slightly. "I have learned that I cannot escape my past. It follows me wherever I go. The best I can do is try to be better than I was before." She finished her meal and stood up. "Thank you for the conversation." "Thank you for the mercy," he replied. Nodded and walked away. Watched her go, a small human figure among the crowds of aliens. She looked ordinary, she looked weak. But everyone on the station knew the truth now. And nobody ever bothered her again.